I don't know. Did you bring any papers? Okay.
I don't see any mention of trees in there.
Yeah. I didn't either when I read it.
Alrighty. All right, turn the microphones on. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jeff, will you call the roll, please?
Trustee Spurling?
Here.
Trustee Lee?
Yeah.
Trustee Hines? Trustee Youngerman?
Yay.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Here.
All right, we're all here. Go ahead and get started. Normally, I'd bump down to the separate action, but I don't think we have anybody under public participation. Is there any resident or member of the public that's here this evening to address the board? This is your opportunity. All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Item 5 already. The consent agenda, we have nothing, so we'll move on to item 6, which is items for separate action. We have one item today, and with that, I will, which is the appointment by Village President of Tiffany Francis at 2957 Manchester Drive as Village Clerk to fill a vacancy through April 30th, 2017. And if there is discussion, we can certainly have discussion. Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moved in second. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Hines?
Yay.
Trustee Youngerman?
Yay.
And that carries unanimously. With that, I'd like to ask Tiffany to come on up front. We'll get you started.
Put you to work.
Yeah, that's next.
You wrote those down, right? You were writing those down, right?
It was unanimous.
Okay. We practiced this earlier, actually. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Tiffany Francis,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of village clerk
the duties of village clerk
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Congratulations already. This is the less than formal version.
Welcome aboard.
Spelled my name in all the minutes.
It is, you know,
You owe me two bucks. You're gonna owe me tonight.
Yeah,
I hope I have
Said
to
it's the
pay you a
same one
buck.
as the police.
I hope so.
That was intentional.
She had it, at least she was consistent.
Well, I only might have 100. You have to cash 100. No, I got it. A
And I know
5.
you do have family here. Do you guys want to come up and take a picture?
Change, don't you worry about it.
Yeah.
Oh, now the glasses come off.
I meant to take them off before.
Except you need them to read.
Yes.
You got a sick boy at home, so there's one more.
Never mind, it fixed when you turned.
Do I what?
You know how to use those cameras?
Awesome. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it.
She left it there.
No, I have my own.
Oh, that's the.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, never mind. Conversation with her.
You'll be in trouble.
I wasn't prepared to.
All right, we are going
Just a second here.
Oh, look at that. Now you're ready.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
All right. With that, we will move on to, or we won't. Depends if they're ready or not. Move on to items for discussion this evening. Item A, we have the FY16 General fund budget discussion. With that, I'll ask
Justin will handle it.
the Director of Finance, Justin Van Voorn, to summarize this
Thank you very much.
for your entire presentation. actually.
President Crowley. In your packet tonight is the general fund details, has the summaries by department and division. And we're just going to go through a quick slideshow here. So if there are any questions as we're going through this, please let me know. Can also answer questions at the end. So without further ado, we'll get going here. Okay, is this-
Tell Tiffany now she puts a little
There we
dance.
You entertain them, you know.
Here we go.
So for the fiscal year 15 budget overview, the budgeted revenue was $9.17 million. The budgeted expense was $9.15 million. The surplus, the net surplus was budgeted to be approximately $15,000. The projections so far this year, our revenue is projected to be at $8.81 million, and then the expense at $8.85, a net deficit of approximately $37,000. That leaves an ending fund balance of 39.7%. The main reason for the revenue coming in lower is the sales taxes coming in lower than budgeted. However, on the expense side, all departments have done a good job this year in limiting expenditures. We'll continue to do so through the end of this year. They've been asked to make sure if they need something, go ahead and buy it, but just to try to reduce that deficit even further. The fiscal year 16 budget overview for the general fund, what was requested was approximately $8.98 million in revenue and just over $10 million in expense, which resulted in a deficit of $1.03 million. What is being recommended to the board is a revenue of 9.31 and expense of 9.30, which comes out to a net surplus of $4,600. The ending fund balance would be 37.8%. Momentarily, we'll talk about the contributing factors to the increase in revenue and expenditures from 2015. For the fiscal year 16 budget for revenue, there are three revenue sources, 3 equals 80. There are three revenue sources that make up over 80% of the village's general fund revenues. Those three revenues are as follows. The first one and the largest one is sales tax. We are estimating sales tax for fiscal year 16 to be $3.43 million. This is a 8% increase over fiscal year 15, and that includes several new stores that have opened recently, such as Murphy Oil, have turned in plans such as Chiquita and Niners Grill, or that will start working in the spring, such as Speedway. The second largest revenue item in the general fund is property taxes. The property tax we're estimating for this year is $2.29 million. This includes frozen tax levy on the existing property and an increase just based on the new property only. That increase is approximately $70,000 above last year's property tax. The EAV is shown in the table at the bottom. So you can see that our 2013 EAV is actually somewhere between where we were at in 2005 and 2006. The third largest item in the general fund revenues is income taxes. This amount is approximately $1.82 million. It is based on an IML estimate, Illinois Municipal League estimate of $99 per capita for fiscal year 16. That is an increase of $1.20 per capita, which approximates $37,000 more than last year in income taxes. The biggest portion of the village's expenditures go to personal services, and the village as a service-driven organization continues to expend the greatest percentage of its general fund budget on those personal services.
You mean personnel, Justin?
It's wages and benefits. In the fiscal year 16 budget, we have no new positions included. As you can see there, between the wages and benefits, it's approximately $5.5 million of staff, which is approximately 60% of the general fund budget. If we look at insurance, the health insurance has been budgeted at a 15% increase in the premium at renewal. Dental insurance budgeted at approximately 6%. Life insurance has been budgeted at a 0%. We actually locked in the rate for multiple years when we did our last renewal. And then liability insurance that covers workers' comp and auto and property, that has been budgeted at a 3% premium increase at renewal.
I have a quick question, if I may.
Sure.
When will we know, we've budgeted 15% for the health insurance. When will we know approximately what the true cost is, or the true percent?
Our renewal date is in December, and so we typically know around the 1st of November, the first week or so of November, what that
Okay.
percentage will be.
So right now, we know what our rates are up until November, December of later this year.
Yes,
Okay.
November 30th, yes.
Thank you.
Some of the highlights of general expenditures, the vehicle reserve transfer, just as a reminder, we did reestablish the vehicle reserve last year in fiscal year 2014. What we were doing was we were trying to ramp up to full funding in the vehicle reserve fund. So in fiscal year 15 that we're in right now, we were at 50%. And then fiscal year 16 that we're going into, we're going to 75%. So the $471,000, that's the total amount of the vehicle reserve coming out of the general fund. That is an increase of $102,000 from last year. The EDC contribution is out of the general fund. The village board did increase that contribution last year, and it remains at that increased amount. So it remains at the $90,000 that it was last year. Sales tax rebates, as we talked about earlier, that we're estimating sales tax is going to be a little bit higher. We're also estimating the sales tax rebates to be a little bit higher, and that's approximately $140,000. The rebate agreements would be with existing businesses that we already have agreements with, and then new businesses that will be opening up within the next year. The tree program that has been included in the budget is $91,000 total versus the $90,000 estimate that's going to be spent in fiscal year 15. A couple of capital expenditures out of the general fund. The first one is Village Hall seal coating. we are on a 3-year cycle now for each of the buildings, and Village Hall is in fiscal year 16, that's $19,000. And then we have several computers and servers that need to be replaced this coming year. When we look at those, similar to what we have done with the Vehicle Reserve Fund, we have a schedule for computers and servers, and now have those on a replacement schedule as well. So that is for the ones that need to be replaced this year. And with that, that's the end of the presentation. If there are any questions, or we can certainly answer those at this time.
I have a quick question. I know I was in my budgetary meeting by myself. I'm not sure if this question was asked during the other meetings, but just for clarification, the 91,000 on the trees includes the equipment that was asked for and not the 90,000. It's not $90,000 that's going directly to plant trees, correct?
It is approximately $50,000 is going to plant trees and $40,000 for other items.
For the equipment that was necessary?
There was,
It does not include the equipment. It's the large tree pruning, the stump removal, stump grinding, those other things.
The equipment's a different line item? Okay, thank you.
Is the equipment included in the budget?
equipment is not currently included.
Okay.
I have a question. When we shut down dispatch, which was in 2013, correct? It was estimated that we would have a savings of roughly $500,000. My question for you is, where does that savings show up? Does that show up in the general fund? And is it really $500,000 because we're also paying to KenCom now roughly $250,000?
$250,000.
Right, so is it a savings of $250,000 or is it actually a savings of $500,000? And where does that money show up?
I mean, the estimate was, I believe, 500 in addition to the 250. I would say it's somewhere between there. I don't know if we hit the full 500, but it's more than 250. It shows up in several areas. I mean, we added one new officer last year, which takes up part of it. You know, I guess it's hard to say. You look at the whole budget, you can pick any piece that it goes into. The vehicle reserve transfer or.
So it was spread out, it wasn't
Correct.
strictly.
It didn't stay strictly in
stay with the
police.
police.
No, it was part of the
We can
general
spread it.
fund.
Okay.
But I do believe after that, there were some administrative positions that we also added at the PD, didn't we?
No.
That was, so the positions that we added were in conjunction with that, not afterwards. Okay. All right. Justin, I just had one question on the sales tax rebates that total $943,000. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but can you list off there were several agreements that have been in place for a long period of time with Walmart, Sam's, and I can't remember all the other ones. And Ogden Hill. The ones that we've approved in the last few years are really a small fraction of that. Is that accurate?
The ones that have been approved in the last few years, like,
Yeah, meaning
The new ones here. That
the
we've
new
done.
ones, La Chiquita,
I mean, La Chiquita and Niners.
Niners.
Chiquita and Niners are a very small portion of that 943,000.
Okay. One thing I should also mention is 80% of our revenue comes from these three sources, income tax being one of them, and that's something that Metro West has been watching pretty closely as the governor gets ready for his budget address tomorrow morning. There is considerable talk about that and how much, if any of that, the governor may ask to take. And so Metro West, the DuPage mayor and managers, and the IML, everybody in the state has been watching this closely because this could be, even a small reduction in that could be a huge impact on this village going forward, so.
Obviously, as every year, this is the first of many discussions we'll have at the next few meetings until April, when we hope to have you approve the budget. So if you have questions as we go along, obviously, yes.
Couple of items. First of all, I'm hoping we can find money for additional tree plantings. the task that we have before us to replace the forest in the village is substantial. I'm concerned about the great work that's been done to balance revenue and expenses, and we're looking at a $4,000 surplus, if you will, which will take a lot of resolution to maintain over the course of 18 months. But the forests are important to our village, and the absence of them are kind of a scar on some of the neighborhoods where there may be 4, 5, 6 trees in a row that are gone. So I just wanted to be an advocate for trees as we deliberate this. And another point I wanted to discuss was economic development. I don't think there's anything that we can talk about now that's more important to maintaining property values and keeping property taxes down and ensuring the future of our village than economic growth through existing businesses, through attracting more businesses that can develop and employ people within our community and help keep our young people here. We really can't have a situation where young people have to move out of Montgomery to find a decent job. Last year, we approved a significant increase in the spending for MEDC, and now we're looking at continuing that increase, and I'm hoping that we might all agree to use this moment to request a presentation of the representations that were made when we made the decision to increase that spending, and a specific proposal for what would be done with the new monies if they're appropriated again this year, because obviously the budget's very tight. But as I've said, I don't think anything is more important to the future of our village right now than economic growth and expansion. If not in this manner, then in some other, we must find a way to grow. So I'm hoping the board would agree that maybe at a future meeting, maybe the next one, we could see a presentation on the representations that were made for this year's increase and a proposal for what would be done with the new monies that we might allocate next year.
The one thing that I can say is the MEDC has a calendar year budget that was approved in December that details very specifically what it is that they're going to accomplish. And I don't think it's outside the realm for Shar or Doc to come to a future board meeting and give us an update of where they're at with their budget and what they hope to accomplish in the next year. Right before this meeting, got an email from Shar about the national publication that we were in this month. I just passed a copy of that to Stan, if you wouldn't mind passing that around. When I first read the email, I thought that this is a local publication and we're in it, and, you know, Village of Montgomery Village Hall is shown in there. But that's a national publication, so hopefully that's serves as good press for us moving forward. But
Just ask if the board would like Shar or Doc to come present something, if maybe we could look at the first meeting in March, or maybe just since we're already at Tuesday and the meeting's our next meeting's next Monday, just to give them time to prepare, if that would be, if that's what the board desires.
we could say a future meeting that meets your guys' schedule. So you mean you don't have a presentation in your back pocket right now?
Well, I think we ought to look at, she gives us every month what has happened locally. We can't afford to hire a person you can look at the budget, we don't have anybody under 90,000 or around that figure. So we're really, the EDC is a cheap investment. And especially the last couple months of all the new jobs coming here. I mean, you got more coming. You got Speedway coming. You got the grocery store on Douglas coming. Both the Walmarts had Murphy Goyle, which was new employees, and then Murphy's especially. That's 80. So I think we've done a good job closing the gaps that are open buildings around here. I think she's done a good job doing that, her and Rich. And I think that's the whole. You can't expect people, I think we got some people that want to build,
Yeah.
but it's very hard to build right at this time. The other towns are finding that out as well, but I think we do have some people interested, so if that would work, we'd be in good shape.
Yeah, And I know that Rich and Shar and everybody's been hard at work promoting the TIF district, TIF number 2, so hopefully we'll see some actual movement on that this year. We have the 2 vacant buildings that filled, so.
I could just quickly, regarding trustee Bond's other comment about the trees and wanting to find more money. I've had conversations with several of you, and I think you all have one or more things that, that you would like to see increase in the budget or added to the budget. And I've explained that Director Van Vorn and I worked together closely and worked with the department heads on trying to fit what we could and tried to prioritize into the budget we had. But again, this is a document that, kind of sets forth the priorities and the goals of the board, and that's, so if there are things that are not in there that you would like, we are fine with that. We would just ask your help on which items are then a lower priority for you that you'd like us to move, and we'll obviously be happy to do that. And we have several meetings to discuss that, so.
I want to give Justin credit for keeping around close to a 40 reserve, which is very well, looking at some of the other surrounding towns. So, and even for the projected budget to have it at 38 is still very well, and I think we remember years when it was less because of the economic, and I think that's very good. Thank you.
And I would add one other thing. The FY16 request came in at $1 million deficit, so I know Justin spent considerable time going back and forth with department heads and trying to prioritize for us so that we can see a presentation of a budget that zeroes out. So something also to consider next time, when next year rolls around, when people aren't going to get their trees replaced this year unless they fund it themselves with the program that we have. Something to consider for next time we freeze our levy in the future, that if it's something that the residents feel very strongly for, then we can make a case for increasing, I don't want to finish that sentence, if we want to fully realize the increase that we could on our property taxes, then we can make that agreement with the residents and do that on a one-time basis to get their trees. Just something to think about. And another reason why our fiscal year being 6 months off from the calendar year really makes it difficult when we decided in November to freeze our tax levy and we don't see a budget until February. It just makes it tough. And that's not a staff issue. It's been the way that we've done business, so. All right, if you have any other questions on the general fund, I'm sure that we will, starting with Doug.
I have one. In one of your early slides, the the income was off and it was adjusted. What was projected for income to what was the final number? There was several $100,000 difference. You said you were going to mention where the additional income was coming from. That would be the one. Correct. So the revenue jumped from just under 900 to 9.3. So where's the additional revenue coming from? That was,
We did add sales tax. We had approximately, roughly $150,000 in sales tax. Went back and looked at our numbers. They did not count for the new stores. Sorry, I'm not on. The first was sales tax, about $150,000 worth. Our projections for current stores actually increased. I track it on a monthly basis, and so that increased approximately $45,000. And then we added $100,000 for new stores, the new stores that we know are going to either have already opened up, that we'll have a full year of, or that we know are going to be opening very soon, like Chiquita Market and Niners.
so those just weren't in your original?
Those were not in the original numbers, so.
Okay.
And then another item was in regards to the income tax. We just got those numbers, that increase, although it doesn't seem like a lot, $1.20, but it's a $37,000 increase. When you look at it, it's a per capita basis, so that was an increase there as well. So there's minor increases here and there in other spots, but those are the two main ones.
I don't think I have any problem with the sales tax going up, because two things that Matt didn't mention this morning, because they haven't even started with Speedway. And I'm sure that's, looking at other speedways in, like up in North Aurora, huge sales tax, really huge. And pumps, I know a lot of people don't even, our Public Works buys tires from them. I think every manufacturer in Montgomery and every manufacturer in Oswego and Yorkville and North Aurora, they buy tires from pumps. And they just took over the Hayden's building, and they will start retail and also expand probably another month yet. But that'll be new sales tax too, and you're selling an expensive tire, not just a dollar item. So I have no trouble with the sales tax going up.
Just Justin, keep a close eye on that the next year. I know you do every month, and you've, I think, started providing the monthly sales tax figures that we get from the state to us. The sales revenue that we're getting, the tax revenue that we're getting, is considerably less than what we estimated based on Sam's Club and that. So I think it highlights the fact that our budget is pretty susceptible to our estimates and also what Sam said they're going to estimate. So next year, just keep a close eye on that, because obviously that helped balance our budget. And if we need to make adjustments during the year, we certainly will do that to avoid spending reserves.
Certainly.
Any other questions? If you have any, pass them on to staff. You can certainly bring them up. Does Jeff or Justin want to just highlight real quickly the process? This is general fund, the other funds, and when you look for approval.
Sure. Each of the meetings now will cover a different section of the, capital improvement, special revenue funds, all the way up until April. We'll have a public hearing on the budget. We'll have first reading of the ordinance, and then look for approval before May 1 from you.
And can you post this full document on the village website like last year? The draft budget?
Fund or the-
No, all of them, yeah.
I can certainly.
All of them, so that way any resident that wants to look at it between now and May or April, they can look at what we're looking at. Okay. Move on to item B, which is the Boulder Hill Water Main Project. And with that, I'll ask our village engineer, Pete Wallers, to give his presentation to the board.
The hell did I do with that paper?
Good evening. Thought tonight would be
Don't want to have to do it over.
No.
Good evening. I'll try it one more time. So we thought it'd be a good time to give an update on the Boulder Hill project. We've gotten considerable work completed. We're at a point where contracts A and B are substantially complete, and we wanted to give you an update on where we're at in terms of our budget and that sort of thing. So
Needs help.
would you mind advancing them
Certainly.
for me?
We need batteries around here. Same thing happened with the mic earlier today.
She break it already?
That's good.
So this evening, what I'd like to do is give a quick update on the status of our contracts A and B, talk about some of the things that we discovered in the course of the construction, and just continue on with our discussion of water main break history, some recommendations, and then next steps. So the first, some good news relative to our budget. We had two contracts, A and B. We awarded the A contract at $3,984,000, and we were able to complete the contract for about $3,617,000 for a savings of about $367,000. For contract B, we awarded it at $2,496,000, and we're able to complete it for $2,487,000 for a savings of about $9,103. I'll just point out that in addition to completing all the work that we had set out to, we were also able to do a number of additional items, 14 valve replacements, 2 additional fire hydrants, 50 Buffalo box replacements. That amounted to about another $125,000 in work. And a lot of that work came about because existing valves just didn't work, and when we tried to isolate areas, we had to replace them. And also the B boxes just didn't function, and at the request of Public Works, we replaced those as we went through the Boulder Hill area. If you might recall, Contract B was a little more far-ranging in that we covered almost all of the area of Boulder Hill. We did a lot of the 2-inch water main replacements, and when we did Contract A, that's fine, you can go to the next slide,
That
Jeff.
wasn't me.
Oh.
Your remote over there did it.
All right. It's hard enough when I got one person to deal with. Anyway, so.
Yes.
All right. We got a professional on the, I don't know. Oops. All right, so this is just kind of an inventory of all the streets, the water main on the streets that we intended to replace. You'll note that we did replace all the things that we set out to replace. In addition, you may recall that as part of the public hearings, we had gotten some comment that Surrey and Chatham were also in need of replacement. We added those to the list as well, and we were able to accomplish all of the streets that we set out for. At the beginning, that was about 21,000 feet. In total, we replaced about added or replaced 145 valves, 107 hydrants, 339 new water services, and about 432 B-box replacements. So a pretty robust program that we were able to accomplish, and again, it was accomplished on budget, and we're almost complete. We're, I would say, substantially complete with both contracts. We're just finishing up some restoration and some additional valve replacements that we'll finish in the spring. You also may recall that we had 2 funding sources for the project. We had both a conventional bond that funded our construction, Contract A, and the engineering for Contracts A and B, and then we used an EPA loan for Contract B. The rationale behind that was twofold. One, the EPA loan to get the go through the documentation and procedures to get the loan took us almost a year. It would have had a substantial delay in the project. So by funding a portion of the project with conventional funds, we were able to immediately start construction. I think we realized a good amount of savings by doing that. So if we look at the total budget that we started with, our initial intent was to use about $4.6 million in conventional bond funds. Of that $4.6 million, we've spent $3,617,400, leaving us a remainder of funds of $982,600. The EPA loan is basically whatever we finish the construction at is what they will loan us. So you'll note that we're projecting that our final value will be $2,487,000, and that will be the loan amount. So there's no additional funds left over, but what we are showing from our initial estimates is that we should have about $982,000 in additional funds that could be used going forward. So that's something just to keep in the back of your mind. We'll come back to that topic as we go forward. One thing that we were able to do with the construction of Boulder Hill is when we started Contract B, every time we replaced a hydrant, a valve, in the system or a piece of water main, we took a sample of the water main to determine whether the pipe was lined or unlined. And the reason for that is what we've discovered, and we'll have some statistics here in a minute, is that the unlined pipe has generally been less reliable in terms of main breaks than the lined pipe, and we've had more water quality issues relative to complaints with the unlined pipe than we have with the line. So it was important for us to know that. The area that we replaced, the initial Contract A phase, which was that southwest corner of the Boulder Hill, that was all unlined pipe and serious water quality problems down there, as you know. So as part of this work that we did, now we were able to basically catalog all of our lined and unlined pipe throughout the whole Boulder Hill subdivision. So it's a little hard to see on the drawing, but the blue lines represent the lined pipe, and the red lines indicate the unlined pipe. And I think the breakdown is about 95,000 feet of unlined, or of line pipe and about 65,000 or so feet of unlined pipe. That includes the 21,000 we just installed, which is obviously all lined material. In terms of water main breaks, and we just kind of give you a little taste here of what's going on in the Contract A area. In 2010, we had 9 breaks, 2011, 6 breaks, 2012, 12 breaks, and then as we started into the construction season of 13, 3 breaks, and then obviously once complete, 0 breaks, and we would expect that to continue into the future. The other observation that we made was that in 2013, Boulder Hill, we had 35 water main breaks, 10 of those in lined pipelines and 25 in unlined. So it's about a 1/3 ratio there. And then in 14, that trend continued. We had about 30 breaks, 9 in the lined pipelines and 21 in the unlined water main. So it kind of supports the fact that we're seeing it's not universal, and there are other factors that come into play in analyzing the water main breaks. So it's, you know, you try to draw some conclusions, and then you have a bitter winter, and you may have other things that happen from the environment that cause breaks to happen. And in 13, we had a particularly bad winter. So anyway, but we're seeing that there is some correlation between that phenomena of lined versus unlined. This is a GIS exhibit of main breaks by year in Boulder Hill area, and it also reflects the pipelines that we have replaced or the water mains that we've replaced. And you can see all those colored blocks are main breaks over the last 3 years. And you can start to get a sense that there's still a lot of water main breaks that are occurring in much of Boulder Hill. What we do when we enter the data from the GIS is the Public Works guys send us an address of where that break occurred, and it goes into the GIS system, and then we highlight the lot, if you will, or the address lot, and that's why you see those bigger dots. But it just is the representation of where the break has occurred. If we compare that then to the breaks that we see in the rest of the village, and again, it's a little bit confusing because you see these big lots in the village, but if there's a break in front of an industrial parcel or whatever, you get the full parcel highlighted. So that's just, but you can see there's far less breaks in the village than there is in Boulder Hill. That's consistent with what we saw back 3 years ago when we started this discussion. You may recall that the village had far fewer breaks per 100 miles than the Boulder Hill area did. And you know, that still continues, and again, you can kind of get a visual when you look at that exhibit. So from the staff side, our recommendation is to continue forward with the replacement of water mains in Boulder Hill. We think that it would be a good use of those funds. We were able to save those through competitive bidding and just managing the project. It would allow us to replace about another 3,000 feet of pipe, and we would probably likely bid out a little more than that, hoping that we'd get better bid prices as we have in the past. And if that was the direction of the village board, we could commission that work to be done this construction season in 2015. So this evening, what we're requesting really is some discussion from the village board and direction on the use of those remaining funds. So I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
I've got a quick one, Pete. When you have 2,800 feet of water main that you can replace, are you going to do them like 6 places at 300 and another 12,000?
If the board directs us to expend the remaining funds, we would come back with specific recommendations, because I want to sit down with Mike and his guys, and we want to talk about, we have some ideas where we think we would replace, but we want to check to see, where we've been getting water quality complaints, where are we seeing something that maybe Mike and I don't know from his guys that we would be able to add to the program. There's a couple of areas that we see as gaps that probably, could easily fit in. So it might be some small sections, but then it might be a couple of longer sections. And again, we'll come back to you all with our recommendations for approval, but we'd like to have the time our next stop would be to sit down with Mike's guys and our guys. And we track, I think you remember this, and we'll bring it back if so directed, but we look at main breaks per 100 miles for all of the segments of water main in the village, and that's how we rank what's the most appropriate water main to replace, and we would go forward with that. But then, as we talked about during this whole process of Boulder Hill, we also added the component of water quality as being an important element, and then we're also now, looking at this lined, unlined as another element. So we've added a couple of additional elements to our review, but also, it makes some sense oftentimes to do things in close geographic proximity as well. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and we also, another thing we like to do is work with the township to know where they're going to resurface roads so that we're not going into a road that they just resurfaced. We try to coordinate with them. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but, and we didn't want to commence that if there wasn't direction from the board.
I have a question, if I might. This $982,000 projected savings, or the savings right now, that's reflected in the Boulder Hill water rates and the amount that they're paying on their water bill now, as if it was spent, correct?
Right.
They're paying, yeah. We might as well just continue the process. And instead of kicking the can down the road, let's just solve the problem now.
And I think when I was talking to you today, Pete, you'd said that we did a lot of work, we accomplished a lot, but we're not complete. There's still work to be done in that area. So I actually don't want to see us, lose those funds. I'd like to see us put those funds into the ground over there to improve that situation. We've done 15% of the total system, and I think we need to keep moving forward with that Contract C.
There's roughly 160,000 feet of pipe in Boulder Hill, and as I mentioned, we replaced about 21,000 feet, so nominal 15%. So, I think there's a good case to be made for spending the money in Boulder Hill.
I have a question. You referenced that in one of the slides, new water services, 339. So were those previously wells
No.
that now came online?
Maybe I didn't really phrase it very well, Trustee Marisak. What we did is, since we wanted to make sure that this was a full replacement, we put a new water main, then we ran a new we replaced the existing service with a new service. So we ran new copper, set a new B-box, and then reconnected the person's service to that new pipe. That way we knew from the main to the street, everything that the village controlled was clean, and we didn't have any buildup of iron or anything like that. So that was strictly replacements of existing services. Now, we did fix B-boxes on that during contract B. We did 50 B-boxes in addition that were ones that, for example, couldn't be shut off and needed to be replaced. So we did do some of that maintenance work as well. And again, that was at the direction of the Public Works staff.
Okay. No, thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
Any other questions of Engineer Wallers?
I recall some discussion of closing dead ends, providing looping where there was none.
Yes.
We did quite a bit of that. Do you see a need to do more?
There may be a few, but one thing we realized as we went through the process is that our atlas maps, while they were good, they weren't absolutely perfect. And there's some areas that we've now discovered that we want to take a closer look at. We tried to replace all of the 2-inch quote-unquote water mains because today those wouldn't be approved. I think we did most of those. There may be one or two that we now know that we didn't get, and I would try to get that in this last phase. We did do the majority of the looping. There's probably some additional loopings that could be looked at. We felt that it was really important to do the looping on that Contract A side, because that's really where everything ended up. And without having circulation down there, it was really working against us. There may be some other areas that we could look at as well, and again, we would do that when we come back to you and comment on that. We did also capture the as-built drawings and are going to put those into the GIS system so that we have that better information going forward. And that's been really another bonus to the project. We've learned a tremendous amount about the system. We now have better information than we've ever had before. So.
One thing I would add to that, I reached out to Cindy Sansale, who think you guys will recall, came to the board 2 or 3 years ago with her jug of water, I think, and kind of first brought this to my attention, the water quality concerns that she had down there with rust. Reached out to her just to see how things were going. I know that Public Works and EEI had probably been in touch with her before, but she's, I should read exactly what she wrote so I don't paraphrase, but she's very happy with the water quality since they looped the main by her house. And so that was a good piece of feedback that we got. The one thing that I would implore this board and future boards and staff is, I think for the first time probably in 50 or 60 years, we have a great handle on the current condition of all of the water main infrastructure that we own in Boulder Hill, and to develop a plan, or at least attack that strategically moving forward, because up to this point, we didn't know exactly what we know today, and like you said, we learned a lot on it. 2 other points that I want to make. It is, and I know that I've talked to Engineer Wallers about this before, we had to go out for the 2 different loans. We had our conventional, we had our IEPA loan. For it to take a year to get a loan approved by the IEPA when I believe that they do have funds available from the federal government that they got. I know there's a lot of red tape, but to take a year to approve a public infrastructure project is a shame that we had to go out for conventional funding on this, because they do provide low-interest loans. The last comment that I would make, I would like to see if staff, I've received a lot of comments from Boulder Hill residents over the last several years regarding the $15 a month infrastructure fee. In light of the situation, I would like to see if staff could look into some form of a senior discount for the seniors in that area. I've talked to Justin and Jeff preliminarily about that. I don't know the exact total, but the data that we have suggests that there's 10% seniors in the Boulder Hill area, and I would like to look into if we have the means to offer some form of a discount for our seniors.
Maybe we could shield them from future increase if we can't afford the immediate.
Yeah.
We'll look into that, and we can bring that back when Mike and Pete bring back stuff about Contract C.
Okay. Awesome. And is there a general consensus, Contract C? Good idea, let's move forward with it. I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads, so.
I agree.
And great job to both Public Works and EEI, as it seems like there's a real cohesive communication and attack to this project, and it's worked.
Sweet. All right, we don't have any other items for discussion. Item 8, unfinished business. Jeff said there's no new business today.
Just as unfinished.
First item on unfinished business, we have Director Pubens for a summary.
Want it? Okay.
Thank you, President Brawley. As we discussed at the, I believe, last board meeting, in response to the resident concern.
We're going to have to do the beginning over again.
Thank you, President Brawley. Just coming back to you in response to the residents' request at our last board meeting regarding stop signs at the corner of Avalon and Hanbury. Which, if I can point them out, yes, there you go. The cursor already beat me there. As I said at the board meeting, our standard method is to first look at that intersection and compare it to what we call warrants, or different criteria that have been established for stop sign or yield sign placements. I've gone through that process. We basically have a form that we use. There are 10 sets of criteria or warrants, and we then rate them on, yes, it meets the criteria, no, it does not meet the criteria, or additional study required. On 9 out of the 10 warrants, this intersection did not meet the criteria. But on one warrant, which is the need to control vehicle pedestrian conflicts near locations that generate high pedestrian volumes, I felt that that required additional study. Again, that high pedestrian generator would be Lakewood Creek School, which is right here. And generally, the situation is driven by at dismissal. Students are crossed here on the north side of Avalon, walk down the north side, and then there are some crossings here. So, based on the warrant study, I did actually 2 site visits. One was somewhat informal. I didn't take an official tally, but I did go back last Friday at dismissal. This is the form we use, and we basically count how many cars go straight through, how many make turning movements. We count the number of pedestrians. We denote how many trucks went through there, if any, how many cars. And based on that study, I've found that there are very few pedestrian vehicle conflicts at that location. In fact, the day I was out there, this crossing from the north side to the south side of Avalon onto Hanbury, there were 2 pedestrians, both school kids, but 2 pedestrians that made that crossing. And in my judgment, I did not feel that there was a serious conflict between pedestrians and traffic. So we do see some increased, as you can imagine, if anybody that's been around a school at dismissal time, there was about a 10 to 15 minute period of very high activity. There are a lot of cars that parents that stage down here. They park down here and wait for their kids to come out. And as those kids get picked up, many of them exit this way. Some of them go straight. Some of them turn south onto Hanbury. Not all that many pedestrians walking that way. And again, when I'm saying pedestrians, there was 100% kids coming from the school. There were some pedestrians that continued easterly on that sidewalk, but again, only 2 that made that crossing. So based on the field review and the warrant criteria, I would say at this time the intersection does not warrant a 3-way stop sign as requested. So I'd be happy to take any questions on that or any discussion.
I have a question.
Yes.
I was out there, I happened to be there Tuesday after our meeting, and yeah, there's not a tremendous amount of foot traffic crossing at that intersection, but I did notice that the crosswalk there isn't a marked crosswalk at all.
That's
So
correct.
would that be, I completely understand the 3-way stop sign it's kind of nuclear. It's a pretty dramatic change. Is there other things we could do by perhaps marking the walk and maybe some signage about, alerting people that there's a crosswalk there to, watch for pedestrians in a crosswalk type of thing? Because the cars that do go through there are clipping, and I think some of the data that you have from the Friday, if I'm not mistaken, there's some after-school activities on Friday. So I think there may not be as many kids coming out. But again, the day I was there, there's not 15 kids crossing at that intersection. There may have been 4, 6, and kind of in groups, in 2 groups maybe. So I just did notice that the crosswalk there's no markings there, there's no signage. I was shocked to find out that there's actually a yield sign on Hanbury there. So I didn't realize there was even a yield sign on the Hanbury side. But is there an option for something less than 3-way stop?
There is an option. There's more leeway in the application of crosswalk markings and signage. The warning that goes with those is that those signs indicate to drivers that there are pedestrians crossing. And as drivers go through that intersection time after time after time and see that there aren't really pedestrians crossing, it can, in an odd way, increase the chance for conflicts. Now, that being said, we have crosswalks that are marked throughout town that we've put in as warnings, I would say. So I think that's an option.
Okay.
But again, I think we need to be very careful with additional signage. We don't want to create this expectation that there's a high number of pedestrians when there aren't, because once people realize there aren't, they start to ignore the signs.
Well,
It's the same theory with
I had a
stop signs.
conversation on Tuesday with the resident that presented to us, and reiterated exactly what President Brawley had mentioned about the concern about putting a stop sign in an area where one isn't warranted. It becomes more of it creates a larger danger. So your point is well made about the additional signage, but if there's some form of marking we could possibly look at for the crosswalk.
You know,
One option, oh, excuse me.
go ahead.
One option that, in discussing with Engineer Wallers, we've provided the vertical panels that go in the crosswalks that say vehicles must stop for pedestrians. Those we donated to Lakewood Creek School, and their crossing guards take them in and out. If there were a resident in that area who felt a passion for providing safety, I think that would be an arrangement we could make in providing that panel, and with the understanding that someone in the neighborhood would put it out in the morning and afternoon as kids walk to school and back home, and then take it in the evenings. I don't think the school would go that far, and I'm not trying to cast a negative light on the school. They have their hands full right there on
And
Lakewood
it's a ways
Creek
away
Drive.
from the school.
Pardon me?
It's a ways away from the school, but those have made a tremendous impact down at the school. They really have. I've heard comments from parents and administration that those have helped tremendously since we put those out.
So that, I think, would be another option to consider.
Is there a warrant study required to, because one of the, I can't remember what road it is, but there's a yield sign at one of those areas, correct?
Hanbury, yeah, Hanbury into Avalon.
Actually, all three of these, I may be getting, this is Hanbury, and I believe Geneva and Columbia, is that
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Hanbury and Geneva have yield signs, Columbia has a stop sign.
Was there a warrant study that was required to put those signs in?
Those signs were put in during the development phase. I'm going to make an assumption, I know that can be dangerous, but I'm going to make an assumption that the developer, as they looked at traffic patterns, had some sort of logical reason for putting those in. I have not seen a study. Pete, I don't know if that's something you.
We also have a form that covers yield or two-way stops. The warrant conditions are a lot less than the three-way or the multi-way stop. As Mike said, typically when we've had subdivisions come in, they come along with a traffic study, and so we kind of go through that process during the design of the subdivision. It's not maybe as consistent throughout every subdivision, and it somewhat is driven by the developer and their what they're trying to accomplish. But from time to time, Mike and I do go out and look at intersections to see if a yield sign is warranted or not. And again, there's a different level of warrants that are involved.
I would say the placement of those signs does not violate any standards for traffic control, nor does the absence of those signs. We have other subdivisions where we don't have yield signs or stop signs at all the intersections, all the three-way intersections.
And those would be.
Somewhat, I think,
Oh, sorry.
is engineering judgment from the engineering staff that puts those plans together.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't really do a warrant study of a development that hasn't been built yet. There's no traffic.
Traffic to count, right?
There's no traffic to count.
Projected, but
I would think that those yield signs should be probably replaced to stop signs, as far as if we're talking about the road that's dead ending into, what's the road that goes through there?
Avalon.
Avalon?
Avalon's the east-west road.
Because if people are, and if I'm a resident, I live on one of those streets and there's a yield sign, I'm doing a right turn, I'm looking to my left to see if there's any traffic coming, and then I'm continuing my right turn. I would think that a stop sign would be safer as for pedestrians that are traveling on the south side of Avalon and walking along the sidewalk. That's my opinion, but
From my observations, and it was one event, and there may be slightly different conditions, there were no pedestrian crossings on the south side of Avalon. And I think primarily because the staffed crosswalk coming out of Lakewood is on the north side. So they're directing pedestrians to the north sidewalk. So it makes sense that we wouldn't see any crossing down here. So,
Director Poopins, that's what I was going to ask you. The crossing guard, they only do the north side. They don't allow, or they don't have the kids cross to be on the south side, and that's why they're crossing down, further down?
right, they'll cross them from the west side of Lakewood Creek to the east side on the north side of Avalon. And I believe on the south side of Stacy is where the other crosswalk is staffed.
Savoy.
There's a painted crosswalk here that, when the school first opened, I recall it being staffed as well, but it has not been for some time.
Well, they changed the traffic pattern for safety concerns because the drop-off and pickup used to be in the Horseshoe Drive, and they moved it now to the other end of the building. So they shut that,
Right here,
they shut down the crosswalk at Stacy. There's a crossing guard there, but not crossing Lakewood. They crossed the kids across Stacy. And it was because of the high volume of traffic going in and out of the parking lot. That
There's
was
a lot of
That
traffic
change was made.
Okay, so to continue my question, why couldn't the crossing guard cross the kids across Avalon? And, I'm sorry, what's the street lower as well? So that they're able to be on either side of the road and they're not having to cross the street further down away from the school?
So why couldn't they cross them here or here?
Well, yeah, there, up and down.
Okay.
So you said they're crossing on the north side, so why can't we have them cross over Avalon to the south side? And then the same with the other area where there's a crossing guard. Then we're eliminating the problem of having them cross where there's really no adult around.
I think that'd be a request that we could make or a suggestion we could make to the school district, but they hire their own
Right.
crossing guard staff and determine where they feel they would be put. So again, I'm going to assume that to do that, because of the number of kids coming out and the number of cars that are traveling down Lakewood Creek Drive, you'd probably need 2 staff people, 1 for each crossing. Again, whether they would be willing to do that, I don't know.
We'll say my children go to Fox Chase and Oswego, and we have a similar situation at Mill there.
Yes, I'm very
And,
familiar.
and the crossing guard goes out and lets them cross Mill, but then stays out there, and some of them then make the cross across, I think it's Lynx, and then some keep going, and she basically stands out there in the intersection until they've made, either go straight across, or some of them do make the
Right.
L move there,
I mean,
which is what you'd be
that's-
looking at here.
I can't imagine things have changed that much since I was a kid. I mean, that's what our crossing guard did. They stood out. They got you crossed one way and you waited, and then the person walked over here and then you crossed here. So if we have somebody out there, I just think if we don't have the justification, according to the study, to do a stop sign, then we need to do some kind of adaptation. I mean, I know it's kind of difficult to say, okay, kids, you have to walk this way now, but if you have the crossing guard out there already, it seems to me that would be a simple solution at this point to do that.
I mean, that'd just be us working with the school district and you know, getting them to do that and educating the kids then on.
I'm pretty sure there are 2 crossing guards.
Okay, so even
I'm pretty
better.
sure. I walk my daughter through that intersection to take her to school. I believe there are 2 crossing guards there, one going each direction. One of the concerns with crossing across Avalon there, and Chief, you can attest to this, there is the amount of traffic in that intersection from Savoy down to Stacy is beyond your comprehension, the amount of traffic that is in there during that 35-minute period, and the blatant disregard. A cab driver will not let you exit into the roadway, and you have parents that pull up on Lakewood Creek Drive and let the kids get out into the lane of traffic to run across to go to school because they're running late. So
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry, that's
Exactly.
absolutely
You can't
ridiculous.
control that,
You're coming
so-
into a school zone, you're dropping off your children or you're picking them up. Okay, you slow down, you stop, you make sure your kids are safe. I don't understand what the
I
problem
believe
is.
there is a crossing guard at Avalon and Lakewood Creek, at both intersections. The amount of traffic, why those kids aren't walking down the other side of Avalon, I don't know. I mean, the day I was there and witnessed, there was kids crossing in the middle of the street. They weren't, because I know that they live mid-block. So they didn't cross up at the intersection, they crossed mid-block.
Right about there, I saw.
Yeah. I mean, I know the families that live over there, and that's where the kids live, and they kind of herd mentality. They cross, and they're all walking and talking and doing whatever they're doing, and then as they get down the block, then they peel off and go to their house. So, again, I think you can plan and do all the planning in the world, but the warrant study doesn't warrant the stop signs. And trying to make it just a little bit safer, because, again, there's a crossing guard up there. There's a crossing guard up there.
I think that's exactly the point that I was going to make, was the safest, setting the kids there up for success would be to do all your crossing here if you can. And I think us putting anything here, in my opinion, doesn't, I mean, the stop sign didn't warrant, but doing, even striping it for crossing, people will ignore that. If you can avoid the kids from even needing to cross there, let's do it. We can work with the school district, or at least make the suggestion to them, but, and the other thing that I would say is that the answer, and I appreciate the study that goes into these, the answer isn't always yes. But the fact that we did look into that, and I know that staff will be getting back to Tricia Lustig,
Lustig.
yeah, about what your findings were on that study, and maybe offer to assist if they want to chat with the school district, or at least make that recommendation from our PD or Public Works. Because I know that this is one of 13 T intersections in that area, and multiple intersections where kids leave that school. So I think they're probably well aware of this situation, but.
Well, actually, it's funny you say that, because I was there Tuesday. I happened to have been in the front office and was talking to the secretaries about the situation that had happened and about the presentation. And the school principal came walking out of her office. And she said, "Did you know that somebody got hit by a car on Thursday?" And they said, "He just told us that." She didn't know. The parent called her on Tuesday afternoon. This was at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And immediately the principal hung up with her and called Sergeant Palco and was discussing the situation with Sergeant Palco to find out what happened. Because again, it's just one of those things. They didn't call right away, and it kind of, no one knew what was really going on. And again, that's a fair distance from the school at that point, for the school to be monitoring, or, you know. So I thank you for doing the study and looking into it, and for everyone for this discussion.
Just for the record, I disagree.
With all of it?
With I don't think that they need a stop sign on all three, but I think that there should be stop sign at the T intersection. That's my opinion.
Thank you. All right. Is there any other unfinished or new business to come before the board this evening? Okay. Hearing none, you see future meetings. We have intergovernmental meeting for Monday has been canceled, and we have our standard village board meeting on February 23rd. With that, we don't have executive session, or we won't go into executive session this evening, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Hines?
Yay.
Sorry, Trustee Youngerman?
Yay.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes?
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
And we're adjourned. Thank you.
Nice job, Tiffany.